Hello and welcome to the National Leadership Briefing. My name is Doug Sharp and I will be your host for today. Well, it is Friday, October the 4th, 2024, and we are going to have a lot of fun today over the course of the next hour because we're going to cover so much ground, we're going to move so fast, and you're going to receive so much that you are going to wonder how it is that we fit it into the hour. But watch, it's going to happen. Let's go over the agenda really quick. Want to get started right away because we do have a lot to cover. First of all, of course, we are going to review the 4 pillars, and I am again going to stress with you that if you are going to be gathering people around your ideas, you're going to need to drill and train. That is part of it. If you have to get to a certain level of competence so you can be effective, the idea is that we keep reminding you of this because we really do believe that once you get the 4 pillars into your head and you can recite them and share them without any difficulty at all, you will see that more people will be gathering around you because you're comfortable sharing them. You're confident in understanding the times to share them, and when you can let people know about them in conversations and make it casual, it's really an effective tool in your hands. So that's why we go over it every time. Then, second, we are going to talk about coalitions. You and I have talked about the importance of building coalitions. Well, today, for those of you who have been skeptical about whether or not building a coalition or knowing how to build a coalition of people around good ideas is a good idea in itself, I'm gonna do it in an interesting way for you. I'm actually going to give you 10 examples. Yes, I'm going to give you 10 examples as to why it is you would want to build a coalition. 10 examples of where you can build coalitions, not 1, not 3, not 5. I'm going to give you 10 because I really want to drill home to you that, yes, coalitions are a great thing to build, and they are best built in advance. You don't want to find yourself with the need and then look around you and go, oh, hey, I wish I had a whole bunch of people around me that shared my views and values so that we could address this thing that's in front of me now. Coalitions are built in advance. It's like a well. You dig your well and then you drink the water later. You don't wait until you're thirsty to dig the well. All right, great. Then next we're going to move on to the really exciting part of it, because you know that on our program here, the National Leadership Briefing, we always mention that we maintain what's called a Kingdom Influence Training and Education Materials, KITE resources, we call them. And KITE resources are resources that I have spent some time looking into, checked them out, and sort of given kind of a bit of a stamp, just the National Leadership Briefing stamp and brand for whatever it is, if that's got some value to you. But I want to make sure that you have at your fingertips, when you require it, information that has been vetted by our organization. Now, it doesn't mean that it has to be vetted by our organization, but I just want to let you know, if you've been with the briefing for a while, you understand us, you know the lens we look at the world through, and you can kind of count on the fact that we're kind of looking at it through this Christian perspective with a biblical worldview, and we're looking for resources that are aligned with our worldview. So I do a little bit of work curating a list of resources. Well, today, I am going to introduce you again, and not just 1, not 2, but 3 resource providers, people that provide resources for you that you can just know are available and take advantage of and use as the need arises. So 3 strategic resource providers we're going to introduce you through to today. And then finally, we're going to be closing off today by bringing to your attention another Transformer Zoom call. Remember, those who have a heart for their community, those who want to build those relationships between themselves in the church, marketplace leaders, and the local government leaders, those who want to address local concerns, we have Transformer Zoom calls. Work with an organization, a group that brings these together every 2 months. We have another one coming up on October 10th. I'm going to share the details of that as well. So as you can see, it's a pretty ambitious agenda, so I won't delay in getting started right after this video. We'll be right back. These are the things that we believe in. First, that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Second, that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. Number 3, that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable among us. And number 4, that it is inappropriate to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. They came from you. They're your pillars. They're the things that you believe. Okay, well, as you can see in that video, we provide you tools. Again, we believe that communicating the four pillars to others is so important that we want to give you tools, and you're going to find those on our website. We have a video that just really quickly shows the four pillars, like the one you just saw. We have an extended 5-minute version that actually incorporates a script that tells you the story of where the four pillars came from. And then we also have on our website the four pillar script itself. They're actual speaker notes that you can put on your pulpit. You can actually lay on a box in front of you, in front of a group of people, and tell the story of where the four pillars came from. Now, when I talk about the four pillars, the reason why we bring it up, of course, is because we believe that the four pillars and the principles that undergird these four pillars are the core of how you build coalitions. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. So we're going to look at the four pillars today from the perspective of building coalitions. Now, take a look at the pillars behind me. As you can see, the first pillar, we'll just use that as an example. We believe that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want. Now, if you have an interest in gathering people around you who share your views and values, the way you do that is by asking them questions about themselves. You want to know if their views, their values, their perspectives, their worldview is aligned with yours. And if it is, perhaps there are things that you have in common that you can work together in achieving. Perhaps it's an objective, a goal. You can execute a mission together of some kind. You can prepare to defend against a threat or capitalize on a horizon, as we talk about here. But if you've got this statement where parents have the right to raise their children the way they want, and you want to ask questions of others to test and see where they're at, to see if they are perhaps going to be interested in working together with you in a coalition or task force, then all you have to do is ask it as a question. So the first pillar, I would say, stand up in a room of people and just say, hey, does anyone else believe that parents have the right to raise their children the way they want? And you can even go a little bit further. If you get into the speaker notes, you'll see that there's a lot more information you can ask. You can say, hey, does anyone believe that perhaps government raising our kids isn't such a good idea? And do you think that perhaps government, when they try to raise our children, do you think that perhaps we as parents should have a response to that? So you ask questions of others about the principles that undergird these four pillars, and you will find by listening to their answers whether or not they would be eligible to work in a coalition with you. Now, again, I'm bringing you 10 different great reasons and great ways to build coalitions, or great coalitions to build, in a minute here. So I want you to understand that these are tools in your hands. The four pillars are not just the thing that I talk about over and over again at the beginning of every briefing to the point where you're really bored with the first couple of minutes of the briefing. No, I actually bring it up over and over again, because when you grab a hold of this concept and really, really internalize it, you are going to find that whether you're a pastor, whether you're a parent, whether you're a business person, if you are looking to gather a group of people around you to tackle to do whatever you're going to do, you're going to need to ask questions. Let's take a look at the second pillar. Use that as an example. We believe that those we elect to serve us in civil government must respect and defend our right of belief and freedom of religion. So if you're in a group of people and you want to identify who among them might share the same views on that issue, you just got to pose it as a question. Hey, is anyone concerned that our politicians and our elected office holders are not defending our right of belief and freedom of religion? Does anybody have a concern around that? No? Is everybody's fine? Okay. And maybe it's not a big deal to them. But for those that are concerned about it and willing to stand up, and again, it says we believe they must defend. So we have a pretty definite, maybe people aren't hard enough. Maybe they're not into it enough, and maybe they're not committed enough, but you're going to find some committed people that are really certain about the fact that is a non-starter. If a politician is going to remain seated while we get attacked and our freedom of religion and right of belief is being questioned by others to the point where we're being oppressed and we can't go out and be free to walk out our religion in the streets, well, we're going to stand up and we're going to do something about it. So these people that are willing to rise with you, you want to find them. And you find them by asking them questions about the four pillars. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them today, but remember the third one is that when we elect office holders, those lawmakers, we believe that the laws and policies of civil government must provide for the safety and security of the citizens, especially the vulnerable that live among us in our communities. Now, remember, you can't always ask that question of vulnerable people and have them rise up. Vulnerable people sometimes are so beaten down that they don't want to speak up for themselves. So we're looking for advocates. We're looking for people who are willing to stand up in defense of the vulnerable. So you might want to pose the question like that. And then finally, of course, this last question about the fourth pillar being, we believe that it's inappropriate for civil government to heap debt upon the backs of our children and future generations. My gosh, if you are a parent or a grandparent of children here in our nation, and you're concerned about that yoke of excessive taxation that's been placed on the backs of children, you are going to find a lot of other people who share your views and values there. So building the coalitions around that principle of fiscal responsibility is not going to be difficult at all. But again, I urge you, become competent, drill and train, practice using them, memorize them so that you can speak to them in a way where you're comfortable enough to be listening as well. Sometimes when we're first starting something, we're so focused on trying to get good at it that we're really not engaged in the process that we need to be engaged in at the level of awareness we need to be engaged in it. So I'm just saying, if you can internalize it where it's just kind of a part of who you are, and you just walk around, if people say, "Hey, Doug, what are you all about?" I can just say, well, one thing I can tell you about, I'm about parents. I'm about parents having the right to raise their kids the way they want. That just flows out of me. So let's get to that point with those four pillars. And then when you go to start building your coalitions, which we're going to talk about right after this quick video, you're going to find it's going to be a lot easier and you're going to have a lot better time with it. So, okay, let's go take a quick break, come right back. And I'm going to go through real quickly 10 coalitions. Just give you an examples. And believe me, there's way more, but I'm going to go 10 coalitions right off the get-go that you can build right now. If that is where your heart is at, and if that's where you feel you're called to be, you can pick from this list or find your own. All right, we'll be right back after this. Bye for now. Okay, well, this is going to be pretty ambitious here. I'm going to knock out 10 of these really quickly. As I say, I've got 3 strategic resource providers to introduce you to today, and I want to give you details of an event shortly thereafter. So we've got a lot of ground to cover, but I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to do this, and I can tell you, it's only 10 of many. I mean, you could just keep going. So let's get started right off the first of all. Let's take a look at the perfect example of a coalition that you and I can talk about right now is the National Leadership Briefing. So you see this is our dashboard. Remember our service dashboard, and you see the National Leadership Briefing there. That is a coalition. So that's you as an individual coming together with me and people from all across the nation, and we can take a look at all sorts of different issues together and work on them together. And there's all kinds of things that we can do together when we come together in a national coalition. So that's the first one. National Coalition, National Leadership Briefing. The second one, of course, let's take a look at the Citizen Action Group section there. Now, there's quite a few coalitions that you could identify within a Citizen Action Group opportunity. Let's take a look at the first one and the most obvious one and the one we teach. The objective is to serve your pastor. So the coalition, the team itself, is brought together to serve your pastor, to help bring support under your pastor, to provide them with resources, to find out what kind of objectives they want to achieve, and then serve them wherever they need you to be. They need you to serve. So it's a team of people that come together with the focus on the needs of the leadership on the church and meeting those needs as a coalition. So that's the second one. The third one, if you are in a coalition of people, just again, these are all just examples. If you're in a coalition of people who share your views and values, and you have an elected representative, whether it be a local municipal government leader, a provincial leader, or perhaps a federal member of parliament in your local area, someone who is representative of you, is your elected representative, then if you're in a coalition of people, you have all sorts of advantages, because when you could communicate to them in a group of people, when you communicate to them, them and they see you as a group of people, perhaps they'll take your voice a little bit more seriously. So the coalition, the size of the coalition, the makeup of the coalition, when it comes to meeting with local representatives, is an advantage. So there's another good one. That is number 3. Number 4, when it is time to select the candidates around election time, is one vote better than 10 votes, or is 10 votes better than one vote? So if you build a coalition of people who are all looking for the same thing out of the person that they want to elect at either, again, the municipal, federal, or provincial level of government, then you have a coalition of people with greater influence on the outcome of who becomes the candidate and who actually ultimately becomes elected. So more people is better than less people. So that's number 4. The local electoral district association board, once a person is elected into government, they actually have local boards of directors. If you had a large percentage of the people on that board that shared your views and values and were members of your coalition, do you think that you would have a greater voice on that board? Yeah, you definitely would. So there's another one. You have an opportunity. Now you might say, Doug, well, wait a second. You're giving me a list of things. I don't know how to do any of those things. Well, I'll tell you what, this is how it works here on the National Leadership Briefing. If you pray to God and you ask and say, God, birth a vision as to what I'm supposed to do with my life, because I know I was saved for a reason, and God puts it in your heart that you are supposed to serve on a local electoral district association board, that's where we come in and help you get on those boards. We know how to do that. We knew how to do all these things. So you let us know. So getting on a local electoral district association board is not impossible to do. And if you go with 9 of your friends, it's even better. All right, so that's number 5. Number 6, election volunteers. Let's say you find the perfect candidate. Let's say you are the perfect candidate, or maybe somebody that's your best friend, and they go to your local church and they're running in an election. Well, I tell you, if you've got a coalition of people already at your fingertips, a group of people, again, that share your views and values, you can gather them together quickly and you can mobilize to support the efforts of getting someone who is willing to represent those views and values into government. You can actually support them with a group of people. So there you go. There's another good reason to have a coalition. Also, party policy. When you go to a party policy convention, and this is really quite easy to illustrate because they put these cards in your hands. And by the way, I have a permission to take these cards back from the last convention because I do a lot of training with them. And these cards are yes or no. So they put policies up there, and out of the 2,000 people that are in the room at the policy convention, they vote whether they like the policy, and it should become a permanent part of the book of the party, the policy book of the party, or they vote it down with these cards, yes or no. So if you've got more people in the room, you have more influence. There's another reason to grow a coalition of people who share your views and values, all rallying around the same principles of the 4 pillars. So that's number 7. Number 8, and I'm just going to roll through one more of these, and then we'll get into some other ones. Number 8, event planning. If you want to plan an event, let's say you want to invite the representatives of government and invite people into your local church, you've got more actual hands on deck. You've got more people to share the workload. So coalitions help share workloads. That's another good one. But let's get off that and get into a few other ones. How about community transformation? Community transformation is something that we encourage. Matter of fact, I'm going to give you some information about an event that's coming up here on October the 10th at the end of this briefing. Community transformation, you need people with different skill sets from different experiences within the community. You want the local church leaders, you want the local marketplace leaders, you want municipal government leaders. So the coalition comes together because they want to share perspectives, like different perspectives from different angles. If you're going to tackle an issue within your community and deal with something, it's good to have these different perspectives. But you've also got people with different levels of resources, other resources that come to apply to solve the problem or the challenge. So that's a good reason to bring a group of people together. What is another one here? Okay. So parents advisory committees. So that was number 10, but we're going to do a couple more here. We're on a roll. Parent advisory committees. If you are an individual parent and you are concerned about what's happening at the local school, you have a limited amount of authority. The authority that is appropriate to you as a citizen, a parent, a member of the local community, and a member of the local school. But if you have 10 parents that have formed a parents advisory committee, that has a greater voice and more influence. So bringing people together to increase your influence, of course, is a part of a coalition, but it also provides an opportunity to give support to the parents themselves. It's difficult out there when you're a parent of a school-age child and you're feeling all alone with some of the challenges that you're facing out there. So coalitions can bring support to people. That's another good reason to build a coalition. Also, if one of your parents takes a hit at the school, you can mobilize and rally around them, like circle the wagons around the parent and help bring them back and heal them and bring them back, and even perhaps defend against, if there's further threats, you can begin the plan of defending against future attacks. Okay, so that's important. Emotional, physical support. All of these things here are good reasons to have coalitions. What about your research and development team there? Bringing people together who have that skill set to when there's a unique problem that faces the church, you have a group of people that all have these different interesting giftings. Maybe there's a little bit of a prophetic edge or an apostolic edge to some of them, and you've got all these different people, but they're all tuned to solving problems. You bring those people together in a coalition and have them standing ready for anything that comes to your church or at your church, and you will benefit from it if you've got it organized ahead of time. And then, of course, if you take a look at the big ring that goes around it all, strategic prayer teams themselves are coalitions. They are coalitions of intercessors, all people with the same heart, with the same objective, with the same vision. They want to serve, and they want to actually walk out their purpose as a member of a strategic prayer team, which is, again, just another coalition. Okay, great. Again, I hope it gives you the idea. So use your imagination. Come up with as many ideas as you can to build coalitions around ideas, but all have it at the end of the day in place to serve the kingdom purposes of God here on this earth. Oftentimes that is facilitated through your church. So don't go out there building a bunch of coalitions outside of the authority of your church leaders, unless it is a community coalition. But if you're talking about something that's going to be happening in the church, you need the pastor involved, the church leadership. You want to be doing this with their blessing. You want to make sure the strategic prayer teams are praying over your coalition as you bring it together, and everything is being done under the authority of the local church leadership. All right, I hope that helps. Again, I'm selling coalitions because I just know we're going to need them. I know we're going to need them. We've talked about it before, so we might as well get those built now. All right, right back after this, 3 strategic resource partners are coming your way, and you're going to be amazed at what kind of resources they've got. Back in a flash. Okay, welcome back. Now, 3 strategic resource providers. The first resource provider I'm going to bring to you because the last thing we just talked about were coalitions and the importance of building coalitions as an example for parents, because they need support. Right now, parents are experiencing significant challenges. So I'm going to introduce you now via video that was provided by this gentleman, Cavanaugh, of Free to Care. And Kevin has just recently come back from traveling the world, sharing something that I want to share with you, and I want to make sure that you know how to get in touch with him. So this is what this is all about, is I'm introducing them to you, these 3 strategic resource providers on the briefing today. I'll put the contact information for each of them in the post-briefing notes, but be aware that these resources are now at your fingertips, and you can reach out confidently and knowing that they're people who share your views and values and are aligned with what it is that you want to see happen in your family and in Canada and in the kingdoms here on us. So what we'll do is I'll just introduce Kevin via this video here, and we'll come right back after that.
I'm Pastor Kevin Cavanaugh, the Executive Director of Free to Care. I've been in ministry for over 4 decades. I'm the father of 3, the grandfather of 8, and the husband of 1 for 45 years. I'm excited to present my favorite seminar, Right Side Up Parenting in an Upside Down World, How to Help Your Children and Grandchildren Navigate the Chaos of Culture. I don't know if parenting's ever been harder. That's why I've committed myself to helping equip Christian parents with tools and resources for how to teach their children a biblical worldview. The seminar has 4 sessions. The first is the why it's both urgent and imperative that we teach our children how to view life from a biblical perspective. The second is the what. In this session, I provide 7 pillars of truth to build into your child or grandchild's life. The third session is how. Transferring truth into hearts involves more than talking. This is where I'm going to give you my secret sauce, proven skills for embedding biblical truth deeply into children's hearts. And then in the final session, it's totally interactive. We'll be processing 4 real-time realities that parents are facing today with their children surrounding gender and sexuality issues.
Okay, now let's hear from a parent who took one of these seminars that Kevin is putting on right now to hear what they have to say.
Well, Pastor Kevin has been a blessing for us because one thing that is a fact is that we all know there's a problem, but it's not always easy to pinpoint the nature of this problem, and that's what we did. First, he painted that for us. He examined, sort of literally dissect the various components that constitute the issue that we face. But he did not stop. He came up with a game plan. How do we address this in a very systematic and yet easy to follow approach? That is based on the Bible, that is spirit-filled, but yet clear in terms of steps. It was a blast. We've been blessed, and may God continue to work in his life.
Okay, so this is what I recommend you do. Look to the post-briefing notes today. Know that Kevin Cavanaugh is someone who can come into your church, who you can introduce to your pastor, or who you can share information through your CAG ministries. Again, if anyone has concerns or interests or wants to gather more information and become better qualified to communicate that biblical worldview parenting model, this is the kind of thing, these are the kind of resources we want to make sure are at your fingertips. Okay, so that information is going to be in the post-briefing notes, and he's a great guy. You are going to be blessed by bringing him into your church or getting into relationship with him. Now, second of all, we're going to go to Jojo Ruba of Redeeming Conversations. And again, this information will be in the post-briefing notes. I want you to know how to get in touch with these people, because Jojo, not only does he have a very, very refined and well-developed skill set when it comes to communicating the things that you believe in as a Christian and teaching others to do the same, but he's also been very helpful when there have been challenges with local school boards or with local organizations that are going off track and parents have concerns about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about this in this quick interview that I did with Jojo, but I want you to meet him, and know how to get in touch with him as your local church requires. You can then get in touch with him, you can bring him in, or else just call upon his resources. But anyway, let's have a quick chat with Jojo, and you'll see what I mean. He's a good guy to know. Well, Jojo Ruba, good to see you again, my brother. It's been too long. How have you been?
I'm doing great, Doug. Thanks so much for the invitation today.
Well, thanks for coming on, because you know something, when I heard about what you were working on, I wanted to get in touch with you right away. And I always want to share the good news with people, right? And it sounds like there's some really exciting things happening right now with you and the company that you're building. So why don't we start there? Why don't you just give us a sense as to kind of where you came from and what you're working on right now, because I want people to know not only who you are, but what they can expect when they get in relationship with you.
Well, I've always felt the need to be able to be winsome, to explain our faith as winsome ambassadors for Christ. 1 Peter 3:15 says that we are ambassadors for Christ. And I think it's critical. It's 1 Corinthians 5:20. 1 Peter 3:15 says we are to always engage with winsomeness and respect, gentleness and respect. So those two verses are both part of who I am as part of my ministry. And as a Christian apologist, which is what we want to do to defend the faith, to make sure we explain the faith well, I've always found this very effective to really focus on the conversations that we have with people around us. That as Christians, we can be confident in sharing what we believe in everyday conversations, because we do have good news to share. And so as part of my work, I started a ministry called Redeeming Conversations, because we want to be able to redeem the conversations that are around us and turn them for good. And so I've dealt with issues like abortion and now I'm dealing with issues on sexuality and gender because that's one of the key struggles the church is having right now and how to engage people around us. Because the ultimate assumption people make is that Christianity, because it has these teachings, must be evil, must be discriminatory, must be bad. And we want to overcome that by asking good questions, by challenging assumptions, by making sure people understand, no, the biblical commands that God gives us are actually good for us. We can trust them. And so Redeeming Conversations exist to help churches, church camps, denominations, organizations, and in many cases, at least half a dozen, I'm helping different Christian schools engage on these kinds of issues and topics. So I actually attended a seminar here, Doug, a few years ago of a group that was promoting how to make a school pro-LGBT. And they take 3 steps to do that. First, they come in and say, well, let's be neutral on the topic. We don't have to take a side because there's good scholarship on both sides. Once they establish a beachhead, then they try to convert people to their revisionist view. And unfortunately, their revisionist view says that we can change the Bible based on our moral standard. And if they could do that on sexuality, they can do that on any issue. And thirdly, once they convert the majority of people or fire people who don't agree with them, then they publicly declare their organization to be pro-LGBT. That's already happened in denominations, Christian universities, and now Christian schools and institutions. And a lot of times Christians who do care about biblical truth, who realize that God's word is good and shouldn't be compromised, they get caught flat-footed. As one of the people I've been working with points out, there are churches now, Orthodox, conservative churches, that have decided to be neutral on this topic. That's the first step. And what they've done is basically silence the side that's biblical and the other side that's promoting this view. They're evangelists for the view, and they try to change everyone to their perspective. And unfortunately, Christians don't have a strategy on how to communicate the gospel in this kind of situation, that we should not compromise what's good news. And your first pillar talks about that too, that we have to recognize that parents have a responsibility to take care of their kids. So particularly on this issue, whether it's a secular or Christian school, we cannot forget, and it's actually a United Nations principle, that a child's best protection are her parents. Children actually have a right to be protected by their parents. And the models that's being pushed here to make a school pro-LGBT oftentimes does it covertly under the teacher's protection, but without the parents' knowledge.
Right. Now, let me ask you about that, because I'll tell you what we hear, and this is not going to be a surprise to you or anybody on the call or on the briefing today, I'm sure, but we hear parents that kind of wake up one day and go, whoa, what happened? Like, it's almost like this, all of a sudden, this is all of a sudden not just, there's no anticipation or expectation that there's going to be a conversation about these issues. Then all of a sudden, it seems like it's already entrenched or permeating the entire organization at their children's school. And they are, like you say, caught flat-footed. And this is what I'm really excited about today is that I'm hoping that you can peel back the onion a bit here and show parents what is going on behind the scenes. Like you say, with this strategy that you just revealed, where they come into the school and they have this 3-prong approach to get these things rolling. What else can you tell us about what is going on behind the scenes at schools? And I understand there's a really good example of something that just went on recently where a school was entirely turned and then turned back. So, I mean, I don't want to jump too far ahead, but just go with that and share a little bit more so parents have a clear understanding as to what they're dealing with at their local Christian school.
Sure. So let me use a few examples, and then we can talk about that example that I think is critical for parents to know right now. So what happens is there's 2 prongs to it. There's the secular pressure, which involves laws, which involves legislation. Like here in Alberta, the legislation requires the provincial legislation under the NDP before they were defeated, passed legislation that forces all Christian schools to have Gay Straight Alliance clubs or anti-bullying clubs. And that becomes sort of cover to allow for this ideology, this worldview that says there's sexuality that God allows for any kind of sexuality or certain kinds of sexuality other than a biological male, biological female for one lifetime, which is what the Bible mandates. And part of the challenge is that people don't know the law, or they don't understand the law. So, for example, here in Alberta, our ministry has actually created an alternative to a gay straight alliance. So you can actually talk about sexuality from a Christian perspective with students, and you can implement that kind of program and include anti-bullying elements for your program, which frankly, there shouldn't be bullying at Christian schools if you do it right. And use that to address the concerns of sexuality and gender, right? So there are ways in terms of around that. But I remember in a school in BC, there was a referendum about whether they ought to use gender pronouns, among other things, and basically the parents were lied to. And misled to believe that there was a legal mandate, a political mandate for them to have to be forced to use these pronouns, and they lost by like 5%. Just a couple hundred votes. And that school has now become radically pro-LGBT or woke in terms of its teaching because all the conservative parents pulled their kids out.
Wow.
So in terms of the mindset, Doug, there's that part, but then there's the other part. And unfortunately, this is the part that's internal. And that's what we've always seen is the push to change a school or a church or denomination starts with someone internally. And that's because the organization itself, the church or denomination or school, has not addressed these issues, has not dealt with them in their statement of faith or code of conduct. And that's part of what I do actually in consulting with these organizations. So I help revise their policies to make sure they're legal, but they're also biblical.
Right.
But the vacuum that they leave when they don't talk about these issues leads to the kind of pressure internally because so many denominations are capitulating on this. And so the argument goes something like this, especially for an interdenominational school. There are good, solid Christians on both sides of this debate. There are good Christian scholars on both sides of this debate. The seminar I attended actually said it compared this sexuality debate to the debate about eating food sacrificed to idols in the New Testament. And they said, well, both sides can live in the church and accommodate each other. We don't have to divide over that. And again, that is a Trojan horse. They're only saying that so that they can get into the institution. And ironically, and this is the part that frustrates me in so many ways, when they say there's good scholars on both sides, they actually don't even examine the scholarship. They don't evaluate whether the good scholarship, quote unquote, is actually biblical.
Right.
Because if you look at the biblical arguments, it's very clear, even in just take Romans 1, that's the clearest passage, that Paul is talking about sexual behavior when he uses the word function. The man leaves a natural function of the woman leaves a natural function of the man. Well, what other word could that imply when we talk about the function of our bodies? So it's quite clear that the scholarship is not only on our side, the Bible is on our side on this. We're defending biblical truth. But here's, I guess, the other part, Doug, and this is part of what I'm writing about as well, is that because Christians don't talk about these issues, we fail to understand that all of God's commands are good for us. All of God's commands. And, as someone who has publicly talked about my own same-sex attraction as part of the conversion therapy debate that I got involved with, that was one of the key lessons that I learned, struggling with this myself, but also being able to share that publicly. The reason why I stay chaste and celibate, the reason why I defend a biblical worldview is because it leads to human flourishing, including my own. And obeying God's word is always the best for everybody.
Amen.
But we cannot articulate that to our young people to be able to say, or to our teachers and to our parents, the reason why we hold this view on sexuality and gender is because we love LGBTQ people, because we want them to live according to the good design of a good God who will help them flourish. And frankly, I've met too many Christian leaders, board members, teachers who cannot articulate that, Doug. So of course we're going to lose a debate because the other side, and this is what's key, they're not bad. They don't think they're bad people, but their motivation is often good. They want to show love to bullied kids. They want to help people who are hurting, who are struggling with transgender identity. And so do we. But the problem is the help they offer leads them to destruction. That's what the Bible says, whenever we disobey God's word. And that's not an anti-trans or anti-gay thing. That's true of any disobedience that we have as non-believers or even as Christians. So it's critical for us to really espouse those truths, but also celebrate those truths.
Yes.
And because we're not preparing for these three steps, these organizations, these individuals, and they may not even know these steps, but it's clearly a spiritually planned thing from the other side, where they come in and then once they establish the beachhead, they're not going to stop evangelizing for their view. That's the problem. And if you don't nip that in the bud immediately, you'll have a situation like the BC Christian School Society Association. That's 36 schools in BC that are now leaning towards being pro-LGBT. And I think most of the people within that organization don't even understand how far gone the organization actually is when it comes to promoting those views.
Oh, that's fantastic, Jojo. Well, I'm going to make sure that in the post-briefing notes today, for all of you that are registered for the National Leadership Briefing on our website, you are going to receive post notes for today's briefing. I'll make sure that Jojo's information is in there because I want you to be able to get in touch with him. I also want to just make a note that somewhere on Jojo's website, I hope there's a place where you can support his ministry. And if there is, I want to include that link as well, Jojo, because you know what, I love to see money going into the hands of people who are doing the things that advances the kingdom. And I'm telling you, I'm excited about what you're doing here today. Thank you so much for your time today, Jojo.
Always a pleasure, Doug. Thanks for the invite.
All right. We'll see you again soon when we get that book launched.
Sounds good.
Okay, well, I'm sure you can see the level of professionalism and competence so far in the first two strategic resource providers. Some people you definitely want to know. You definitely want to know these guys. You want to know what they're doing. You want to know about their organizations. And then as the need arises, you can call upon them. Now, finally, the third one that we're going to introduce to you today is not a stranger to the briefing, but this aspect of their organization's work, I want you to be aware of, because when I saw it, it was just so easy to work with. And I want to make things easy for you. If I want it easy, I want it easy for you too. But this is really going to be a helpful tool for you. So let me bring Scott Hayward from It Starts Right Now back on and have that conversation with him about what's going to help you be more effective in your local community when it comes to electing pro-life candidates to become lawmakers. Okay, Scott. Well, hey, it's good to see you again, brother. How you been?
Can't complain. It's been an awesome summer. How about you, Doug?
That's been good. Been really good. Hey, looking forward to having you out here in the Okanagan once again. It was good seeing you last time. Now,
Yeah,
Scott,
no,
what's that?
I said, yeah, no, next time we come out there again, we'll have to get that smoker fired up.
Oh, man, we love the smoke, don't we? Got to get that smoked meat on the barbecue. All right, Scott. Now I got an email. The reason why you're on the briefing here today is because not only do I always love seeing you, but I got an email from you. But before we get to that, there are some people that are new to the briefing that don't know who Scott is from Right Now. And so just give me the just tell everybody what it is that you do with your organization, because it's really important for people who are pro-life supporters to know you. So just tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, sounds great. And thanks for the opportunity to be on here once again. It's always great to hop on. And for those of you who don't know who I am and our organization, my name is Scott Hayward. Doug just gave a great introduction there. And I'm the co-founder and president of a political pro-life organization called Right Now. So we're focused solely on nominating and electing federal and provincial politicians right across Canada.
Now, when you were telling who you are, you said you're a political pro-life organization. And I love that you're living out loud, you're living large there. And you're saying it straight up is that we have one objective, and that is to elect pro-life politicians and put them in office. And what the reason why this email that you sent me was got me so excited was because I'm on your mailing list. Like, I'm actually somebody who has signed up to receive your updates because I value what it is that you share, and what you shared just this most recent distribution. And by the way, everybody, Scott doesn't hammer you with emails. The only time he ever gets in touch with you is when it's something you need to see. And so I got an email from you, Scott. Tell everybody what you sent me, living in, like, you live in one province, I live in another province, and you sent me an email to my province of British Columbia. What did you send me?
So a little bit of background. The way that we approach elections is that we want to reach out to all candidates, regardless of political party affiliation, to see where they stand on our pro-life issues of abortion and assisted suicide. So oftentimes what will happen is that you'll have a provincial politician that says, well, no, this is a federal issue. Then you'll have federal politicians say, well, no, this is a provincial issue. And they're both right and they're both wrong. Like, there are certain things that the federal government can do to reduce the abortion and assisted suicide rates. predominantly through the criminal code, but there's a ton that it can be happen at the provincial level as well. Things like defunding abortion from the provincial healthcare plan, making sure that the issue, which I'm sure you've talked about on your show lots of times, of the Delta Hospice Society, doesn't happen where you're confiscating private property from a not-for-profit organization because they refuse to provide assisted suicide for the patients in their hospice. Things like one thing that we really are trying to push is that people are talking about parental consent all the time these days, especially in a province like British Columbia when it comes to the SOGI issues, when it comes to sexual issues and what's being taught or not taught in public schools. But that also applies to abortion because there are many, unfortunately, there are many women young women under the age of 18 that seek and receive an abortion without their parents or legal guardians knowing. And so we want to make sure that at the very least that parents or legal guardians are being notified, if not requiring consent, which is oftentimes required for a lot of other different types of surgery for young women seeking abortion. So we want to talk to provincial politicians running in the upcoming provincial election in British Columbia. Where do you stand on these issues? Right. And the way that we approach it, Doug, is say that if you were running, for example, we would send you an email and I would say, hi, my name is Scott. This is the organization I represent. This is what we're all about. We'd like to have a quick, 10, 15-minute chat. It's a private and confidential interview. We don't reveal the answers of what people say to the interview. But if in that conversation we determine, oh, Doug, you are pro-life and we would like to see you get elected as a member of the Legislative Assembly of British Columbia in Victoria so that you can either introduce or vote for pro-life legislation that will substantially reduce the abortion and assisted suicide rate, we will then contact our supporters in that riding to let them know, hey, Doug is running for, X party. He is the most winnable pro-life candidate in your riding. Please, in this provincial election, cast your ballot for him. And on top of that, if you have some time over the next few weeks, maybe pick up a phone and do some phone calls for Doug and his campaign, or go out and knock on doors. Or if you don't have a pro-life candidate or a winnable pro-life candidate in your riding, but maybe next door, you're in the Okanagan, you said, Doug, there's a number of different provincial ridings. Maybe where you are on that shore, there isn't, but maybe across the lake in another riding, there is a winnable pro-life candidate. Well, maybe on a Saturday or two, you can hop on your car across the bridge and go knock on doors for that candidate. Even though you can't vote for them, you can volunteer for them. So this is what we try to do. Now, we do this work obviously before the election, but oftentimes, unfortunately, what happens is that candidates do not respond to our emails. And sometimes they're very busy, which is understandable, but oftentimes they're scared. They don't want to talk about the issue, so they just ignore, Scott Hayward's email from right now, then they're not going to do anything. But what they really have trouble ignoring is emails from their own voting constituents within their riding. So now if you have, 10, 20, 100 voters in a riding on the eve of election, because the election is about to be called in British Columbia, contacting them saying, hey, I just got an email from right now. They want to have a reasonable, private, confidential interview with you. They've done it with other BC Conservative candidates. What gives? Maybe you should do it. And, if you're not really going to have a private, confidential interview with these guys who I like to think were pretty reasonable, asking for reasonable things, then, maybe I'm not going to vote for you in the election campaign, and maybe I won't vote for anyone, or maybe I'll spoil my ballot. It's really good for these candidates to hear that message. And yes, we want to amplify that message as well. But I think in some ways, it's almost even more important for them to hear this message from the voting public in the riding that they're trying to represent.
Right. And this, and you know what's great about right now, and this is Scott, the way you guys do this, I know the approach that you've got when you're talking to these candidates out there. You are very polite. You are very, it's softball. I mean, look, I just want you to fill out a survey. I just want you to talk to us. Let's get to know each other. And so that we can help in moving your campaign along if you meet the criteria of the organization. So the email that I got did say that my local candidate was not participating. And it's almost like, if I'm not thinking about that particular candidate in that particular moment, and I get an email with an actionable item, because that's what it is. You put an actionable item in my hand, something very simple. When I clicked on the link, it gave me the list of not only my candidate in my riding, but it gave me the email address for everybody. And I can just click on that link and I can send that email that you're talking about, asking them to participate in the survey and define themselves on the positions that are important to us. So everybody get on Scott's email list at right now. It's a fantastic organization. And thanks so much, Scott, for letting me get excited in front of you, in front of our people, because I love it. It's fantastic writing. It's great. It was delivered the way in a real nice package, and it's great to be on your mailing list and keeping in touch.
Well, always appreciate the compliments, Doug. It's always great working with you and your organization as well. And for everyone out there, yeah, please come on, join our organization. We love to keep you updated on all the pro-life races that are happening in your local riding, in your province, and across Canada affect you, that you can participate and legitimately make a very big difference in.
Absolutely. All right, Scott, look forward to next time, brother.
All right, thanks, Doug.
Take care. Well, there you go. You've got Kevin Cavanaugh of Free to Care, Biblical Worldview, Parenting Tools and Training. My goodness. You've got Redeeming Conversations, new organization by Jojo Ruba, someone who's going to help you articulate your views and, again, engage in these redeeming conversations. And again, if you get jammed also locally, remember, he's a problem solver. If you've got a challenge with your local school board and you want communications tools, I mean, Jojo's right there to help you. He is someone who's been on the ground, he's worked, he's managed, and he knows his way through there. So he's going to help you out there as well. And then, of course, we have Scott Hayward from Right Now, who's going to just deliver to your inbox exactly what you need in a way you're going to need it. So come around election time with very little of your time, you're going to be able to add your voice to other people who share your views and values when it comes to pro-life candidates being elected to become lawmakers. And you are going to be effective as a citizen because of that newsletter, signing up on the website. So there you go. 3 strategic resource providers that you will find useful in the future. I'll make sure everything's in the post briefing notes. Now, finally, quick video. We're going to come right back after this because I want to tell you about this event that's coming up on October the 10th, and you are definitely not going to want to miss this. This is going to be something special.
The bear has been poked. It's time to wake up from our slumber
and stand together, united as one. One family, one body, one church.
We will not walk past the vulnerable.
Say nothing, do nothing, and turn a blind eye.
We are citizens of a great nation.
We are good Samaritans to our neighbors.
You are not alone.
We are the largest unified voice in Canada. So we stand united. This is our rally cry. We are Christ to our nation. This is our battle cry. He shall have dominion from sea to sea and from the river unto the ends of the earth. Righteousness will reign. Justice will prevail. We are united.
Well, Bill, it's good to see you again. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here today, because I know there's something coming up you're going to talk about. But first, how are you doing, brother?
I'm doing very well. Come through a great summer, a full summer, and fall schedule is in motion. But my life really doesn't, well, let me put it this way. Unless I'm busy, it just isn't the same. So I love a full schedule.
I've come to know that about you. Well, hey, we've got a special event coming up here on Thursday, October the 10th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern. And you are the next speaker, the speaker coming up on the Transformer Zoom call on that day. For those of us that have a heart for our community and want to see transformation in our communities, and you're bringing something special today. So, Bill, I'm going to ask you to share a little bit about what you're going to share on that day without giving it all away, because we want people to be surprised and show up. But what can you tell us about what people can expect on that day if they join us on the call?
Well, I would say out of the gate, be attentive to what the Holy Spirit is saying. In September of 2019, I was in Dallas with a statesman meeting, as we did every fall. And the lady who heads up Lethbridge House of Prayer was with me as well. And we came away from there and we had a discussion. And she said, Bill, we need to do something with what we learned. And what had been done at the Dallas meeting was they held a convocation. I think it was on the Friday night. and she said, we need to address something in Lethbridge. So we pondered this, discussed this, and felt nudged that we needed to address the drug trade, the drug users, which was, like in many communities, is out of control. We have a heavy Native population on our streets, and felt to start, or to make that our focus. And that started the ball rolling. That culminated about 8 months later.
Okay, so now for those folks that aren't familiar with the convocation structure, just describe that for us, would you?
A convocation really is an assembly of believers where they address things from a governmental position of binding and loosing regarding a specific issue, in this case, a social issue, and walk out very biblically regarding what heaven permits, what heaven forbids. And there's a lot of lead time up to that, a lot of white papers, etc. But the day of, it is I guess in U.S. terms, it would be like a Congress,
Okay.
but from a kingdom of God perspective.
Okay, so this is really strategic. This is a plan that you put into place to tackle a very specific issue from a very specific strategic perspective. Is that fair to say?
That's fair to say. It was very, very focused. That's why the white papers, a lot of research, a lot of background. How did we get here? What are the issues, the current issues? And as one of our mentors, Dennis Peacock, says, when you pray generally, you get general answers. When you pray specifically, you get specific answers. So we were very, very specific as to what we were targeting.
That's fantastic. Now, you and I were chatting just before we came online here, and I mentioned that I was excited in particular about this Zoom call coming up and the subject matter, because I believe that in communities across North America, that members of the church know what their pain points are. They know, they see firsthand the challenges that their communities are experiencing. And to have that strategy demonstrated within your community will be very helpful for them. Is that fair to say that someone could take the structure of what you're going to lay out and basically overlay it onto any one of their pain points in their communities?
Absolutely. So we have obviously a blueprint that's specifically focused on the drug matter, but the principles, the structure can be applied for any one of those issues. Now, just if I were to just leap ahead a little bit, after the fact, you're going to look for tangible evidence that you were effective in what you were targeting.
Okay. Now, and are you going to be bringing evidence from your personal experience in your own town?
Yes, that is my intent to, because we had a convocation on July 7, 2020. And a few weeks later, something came to the surface that, again, had huge ramifications in our city about a month and a half later. So we would say we have that hard evidence of what the kingdom of God established in our city.
Wow, you know what? I mean, that sounds like one of the building blocks of a powerful testimony as well. When you have evidence, that's part of a testimony. So a testimony is a powerful thing. We're excited to hear that. Well, Bill, I tell you what, you're going to be joined by another member of your team, are you not, on that day?
Yes. So Jennifer Thomas is joining me. She headed up those meetings leading up to. I gave oversight to the project, but she was the hands-on and working with a team of mostly ladies. And she'll be giving some of the nuts and bolts as to what they did and what it took, the incredible time commitment, but also the results that caused that team to rejoice and praise God.
Oh, man, that sounds wonderful. I'm getting excited. Okay, it is Thursday, October the 10th, starting at 11 a.m. Eastern for an hour. We're getting together. We're going to hear from you, Bill. We're going to hear from Jennifer. And for, again, those of you that have a heart for your community, that perhaps have your own pain point, that thing that's happening locally that you want to see addressed in a very tactical and strategic way, I believe that for all of you here today, if you join us on that call, you will be blessed with some information that'll help you at home. Thanks so much, Bill, for your time today. I appreciate it. And we'll see you on October the 10th.
My pleasure, and thank you.
Okay, so that was Bill Zwartbol, who is going to be on the next Transformer Zoom call. Now, when we leave the briefing today, because we're right at the end here, I'm going to play this last video, and I want you to take note of the email address for registration for that Zoom call. It's going to be on the bottom of the video. So make a note of what it is. And if you miss it, then you can check to the post-briefing notes, because all of you that are registered for the briefing, you will receive post-briefing notes after the briefing today. Well, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an honor to serve you in this way. And it was a pretty ambitious agenda. So I appreciate your time. But in the meantime, and until next time, when we get together, I just want you to know that I'm going to be praying for you. I'm going to be praying for your family. And of course, this great nation of Canada. Bye for now.
We're crying out for the church to be the church in the community.
The ecclesia is a relational model that God has been calling forward.
Being present is about showing up on a regular basis.
So I'm convinced that God will birth a love in one's heart for the place He has put you in. And sometimes that requires a process. Sometimes we don't initially love the place where we are or where God is sending us, but we respond in obedience.
And I believe there must be the restoration of the cry of God in the heart of us as leaders to cry out to God for our cities.
And for those of you who have a heart for your local community, then I would encourage you to participate in what we call Transformer Calls, focused on your engagement and the love that you have for your communities.